Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lighthouse Sessions. I'm excited to have my friend Ryan Hayes with me today. And Ryan and I are going to discuss some amazing things. Spoiler alert, we will discuss his no dickheads policy because I can't stop thinking about it. Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what El Deuterino does for his days?
Yeah, my name is Ryan Hayes. I own a couple of businesses. One of the businesses I own and do daily is a company called A Pretty Big Deal Inc. or APBD. We're a creative agency that mainly focuses on web and e-commerce, mainly Shopify, and life cycle marketing, which is email, SMS, and branding, which is everything from actual branding, logo work, all the way through to packaging, apparel design, and all of that. We're a small team of 7 based out of Orange County, California, and we have a tight little office where we love to make magic happen, and we like to work with people who aren't dickheads. Really, is our biggest thing. But we love to put creativity out there in the world in a bunch of different ways, and work with a really good collection of clients that are diverse and kind of all over the map.
I love it. And now would be a good time. We'll do a shout out to Dr. Doug
Yeah.
Brackman because he brought us together and we got to play on his next book, which is Sheep and Wolves. Ryan makes it look pretty. Jeff makes it readable and worries about the punctuation and grammar. So it was a fun project. So thank you, Dr. Doug, for
Yeah.
bringing Ryan and I together.
Absolutely. Love Doug. He's been instrumental in my life in a bunch of different ways. I thankfully can at this point now call him a friend after all these years. We're just somebody we casually kind of text back and forth. And when I'm in his neck of the woods in Tennessee, I'll stop by and say what's up. And he can show me all the crazy new guns and things that he's bought, which is always fun. But yeah, he reached out to work on this book cover and said there's nobody else other than me that he wants to do it. And I was one, flattered, and after I shed some tears, I was like, all right, let's do this. So I was excited. I've designed a lot of really cool stuff. I cannot remember if I've done a book cover or not. I'm 41 and I've designed a lot of things. I've designed a lot of records, LPs. I'm pretty sure some books in there that I've done, but this was definitely the first one where I felt as much conviction around. So I was excited to do it.
And spoiler alert, it is an amazing cover. I was really excited by it. And we're just now dealing with the niggly details to get it finally published. So we're at the finish line, and then we'll let Dr. Doug announce the date and all that stuff. So
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait for people to see it. I circulate these things when I'm working on them in a very small group of trusted designers to kind of poke holes and give feedback in. And everybody's pretty jazzed on it, which is always feels good. So now it's at the _final_final_finally_1. So as soon as it gets approved by the powers that be that will print this bad boy, then _2, and we'll be good.
Well, and just for anybody listening, you'll understand the fun in this. We're literally dealing with fractions of a fraction of an inch. You know, it's a question of 0.9 versus 1 inch difference, and it's like, oh God, just help us out, KDP, Amazon, and grant us mercy. We're at your mercy.
100%.
But it was a very fun project, and Doug and I. It's funny because we've been working on this, I think, 2 years now, and we start and stop, and it started to really take shape. I think it was around December of last year, so it's fun. Now let's pivot and talk about you and what you do as an entrepreneur, because I find it fascinating that people will say, oh, it's hard to run a business, and yet here you run two. So what are you doing to keep your sanity between those two businesses? What's given you that freedom to be in a beautiful national park like you are today?
Yeah, I'm in Yosemite on spring break with my family and some family friends, and my parents flew out, which is really cool. So, man, I run a pretty big deal on the daily. That is my day-to-day thing. It's where I drive to after I drop the kids off at school. Um, I live and work all within like a 4 mile circle of my house. So we're actually outgrowing the office we're in, and we need to find a bigger one. And I was telling the team, I was like, look, I'm not selfish about like what I try to give everybody around me. I firmly believe in a rising tide floats all boats. There's one negotiable for me, a non-negotiable for me rather, where I do not get on a freeway to go to work. I don't want to get on a freeway. That's it. So the office, when we're looking, and we've hired somebody to help look, that I literally, it has to be like within a couple miles of my office now, and I'm like, I'm not moving. Sorry. It just it's a cool spot. But so that's my day to day. I am a equity partner in a business that I helped kind of start in 2017 called Bubs Naturals, and that's a supplement brand that does collagen protein, MCT oil powder, hydration, creatine, apple cider vinegar gummies. And my incredible business partner, Sean Lake, runs the helm day to day. APBD has Bubs as a client. So we run life cycle marketing, email, SMS, and some creative stuff here and there. I helped start the brand as the creative director, did all the branding, original packaging, web. You know, it's like a Swiss Army knife, right? When you're starting a business, at the time there's 3 of us, like that was it. So everybody just kind of does 150 different things. But the day-to-day of my life is that I've started, stopped, and folded multiple businesses in the last few years. But APBD this summer turned 6. And I would say that there's still a few clients now that exist inside the business that are older than the business itself, whether they were just like freelance connects from back in the day, that when I was starting this, that I was like, hey, my wife is going to kill me. I want to go out on my own. If I do that, and you guys pay her a small retainer, and I basically combined a bunch of these people and clients into a semblance of something comparable to my salary at the time, and was willing to kind of go, all right, let's move, and did it. So I'm grateful for that.
I love that approach, and I find it fascinating. You know, entrepreneurs, we always have multiple balls in the air. Now, let's come back to the no dickheads policy. I want to hear the origin of that, and let's talk about why it's in place.
Yeah. So I started this business really before it was a business. I started basically. We were moving into a new house in the same city, literally a quarter mile from where we lived. And it was just we were kind of downsizing a little bit. The house we were in was too big, and it was like we moved in Feb 1 of 2020. So basically, like right before the pandemic started. And my wife was a hairdresser, so that basically eliminated her business. She had to work from home. The kids aren't going to school anymore; they're from home. And I was running a mortgage bank. And at that point, it was like I had that where I reported directly to the ownership there. And we were having these reverse meetings of typical what you'd be accustomed to as marketing. They were basically saying, turn off the funnel. Like, we have too many loans. And that's because rates at that point were really low. We're doing too much. So I just kind of spun on my side and was like, okay, well, mental health wise, I'm going to start taking care of the people closest to me on my team. So the people that report directly to me, which I think at the time was 4, that I was like, I'm just going to keep checking in on them. So 2-3 times a week, I'd call each one of them and just check in, be like, what's up? How you doing? Everything cool? Hopefully this thing's over in a couple weeks. Let's keep it moving. And, you know, obviously it wasn't over in a couple weeks, but from there, I wasn't doing a whole lot. I was just kind of keeping the ship afloat as was directed to do, but I was building essentially a freelance clientele because I had the time and was doing that and built the business and basically had made kind of enough where by summer of that year, I was like, all right, well, here's the deal. I can fund my own payroll, making pennies, but fund my own payroll, have my bills be covered for a pretty good amount of time. I think at that point it was almost a year of just doing that if I can go out on my own. So I was kind of signing clients on this business that didn't exist yet. And, you know, I would say it's 50-50. It was all word of mouth, still is, but the 50% of the people that we worked with that I knew were great. And then the other 50 were kind of coming through different avenues, and it was money. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to take it, right? There's no reason not to. And at that point, I kind of worked with some people I didn't love, working on projects I didn't love and I wasn't excited about. And I'm like, even though we're working from home and we're home 24 hours a day, I want to enjoy the people I'm working with. And some of those relationships just didn't work out. And I would end up signing a contract, get a month in and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not fun. These people are assholes and I just don't enjoy it. And I would send the money back. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not the guy. And I would just kind of refund the job and be like, sorry, I wasted your time. I can't do this mentally. And my filters got better and essentially kind of coined that into like, we don't work with dickheads. And as my team grew from basically me to more and more and more, it got to the point where the people around me kind of embody that same spirit. And I've always been very, very cautious about signing retainers, very cautious about working with new people. If leads and people and deals take longer than a certain amount of time to, work into a contract, I can kind of tell you like, here's why we shouldn't do this. And that's really based on gut feeling, and what I've seen happen with me is just like, this thing went sideways because it took too long, whatever it was, right? So that no dickheads policy is really like, it's truthful and it's curt, but it's worked. And the people closest, the clients closest to me, I think embody that as well. And like, I just got a text a couple hours ago from one of our bigger clients that I love working with, and we've been on retainer with them for years. Their VP of marketing reached out and said, hey, I moved this meeting that was an all hands agency, like the top people from all the agencies that report into her. I moved this meeting from tomorrow morning to next week. And I was like, I hope you didn't do that just for me because I'm on vacation. She's like, I did, but enjoy vacation. It means, hang out with your family. That's important. And I was just like, man, that's super considerate, and I really appreciate that. And the truth is, I wouldn't have done it. Like I would have woken up in the tomorrow morning and done the meeting accordingly. I'm on West Coast time, and everybody else is on East. So typically, if I'm showing up at 8 a.m., they've already kind of like they're planning lunch plans. So it's different for them. But I don't know. It's people like that and companies like theirs that are really great to work with, and that just kind of reminds me again why we do it.
I love that. And I want to dive into, you mentioned before we hit record how your employees kind of cringe when you use we don't work with dickheads. But to me, I feel like that is setting a very firm boundary. And I'm going to be honest, I've worked in professional services where the client is always right and the employee is, ground underneath their boot at their mercy. What kind of attitude or message do you think your employees are seeing when you openly say no dickheads allowed?
That's a great question. I think that they are, one, I do believe in defending the people closest to you, right? And if you're wrong, you're wrong. And this is not a customer's always right philosophy. I'm not into that because it's not always the case. However, those people pay our bills, and these retainer agreements are representative of people that work for me, salary and healthcare and benefits. Like that's all representative of that. So if you go running your mouth and you say the wrong thing and that person leaves, you get enough of that and all of a sudden jobs start disappearing. So as I'm a realist, and I'm not, I don't make enough money to be like, F everybody, we're good to go. That just doesn't exist. And I don't think that exists for 99% of entrepreneurs, right? But I am endlessly defensible of the people around me and the people closest to me. However, in doing that, I expect everybody around me to be, if there's a problem, it's, I don't know what the original quote is, but it's something along the lines of, it's not what happened, it's how you react, Yeah. And that's, I'm a firm believer in that. And I've taught the people around that, people closest to me around that methodology of, hey man, if you cause a problem, just vocalize it and let's fix it. And I really drove that home in October, like the late September of last year. I emailed the whole team and I said, look, we're about to enter. We've already begun planning, but we're about to enter Black Friday. It's Q4. It's a Thunderdome. It's a Super Bowl of e-commerce. We're bringing through, I think at that time, it was like 14 brands through Black Friday. It's a lot of work. It's thousands and thousands of email designs. It's 1,000,001 SMS text messages going out. It's a ton of different programming on Shopify. It's a lot of work. And I said, all of us are going to make mistakes. That's just what's going to happen. And that's okay. But what I need everybody to do is lightning fast. If you identify something that you did or a problem that somebody else did, call it out quickly. You need to be able to fix it. And I don't need there doesn't need to be all this bureaucratic layers. And I said, there's another thing I'm going to do. Once every 2 weeks, I'm going to Venmo you $100 personally. I want you to go on the company time and I want you to go get a massage, go get your nails done, go go-kart racing, go do something on my time that is representative of you unplugging. And if I find out you spend that money on gas or you spend it on, I'm going to be pissed. I want you to go do it with something that matters and something that will allow you to decompress, because I do believe that's important. And they did. And I think that that stuff is really refreshing. And I want to be able to do that because there are people along my journey being an employee that did that for me. And even if I was making pennies at a job, that stuff still mattered and that resonated with me. And if I can't offer that to the people closest to me, then what are we doing? You know? So
I love that mindset. And I think, I will point out, I see the no dickheads rule as a boundary, not as
yeah.
You're not out there looking for them and telling them, no, we don't take dickheads. It's just, as a founder, we set the tone when we go, I don't think you're a fit for our culture, because bad clients will ruin good employees in a heartbeat.
100%. And I don't want that. And I've seen that happen. And I'm not perfect in saying that hasn't happened to us, because it has. We're not perfect by any means, but it's how fast can you engage on fixing it? There's a problem that happened yesterday while I'm on vacation, and I travel everywhere with Starlink, because we camp a lot and we go off the grid a lot. And I wish I worked in a job where I didn't have to be on call, but I do. And that's okay. Like, I'm okay with that. My family, everybody understands. And I'm not the guy that's like constantly on my phone. When I can be off, I'm off. But we travel with Starlink, and I was out of reception because we were in the trees. So it doesn't obviously get the satellites, but I come back on and there's a bit of a fire. And I'm like, all right, well, this is something that we are directly responsible for screwing up. And instead of figuring out some way to, elegantly position, I'm a marketing guy at the end of the day. So like I can elegantly position my way out of a paper box. But instead of doing that, let's just own it, because it's our problem. Let's figure out what the solution is, and let's get the roadmap set towards here's what the end result will be. Sorry for doing that. Let's own it and let's figure it out. And then everybody is, for the most part, happy and understanding, and that's okay. And I think it's how fast can you identify and solve those problems. That's all people want.
I love that. And one of the things I've learned is if they're annoying in the sales process, I don't want to serve them. Like there's no amount of money that will make a bad fit feel good to me.
Yeah. We're chasing a really prominent brand. I would say that like 3/4 of the brands that we sign and work with, my wife will be like, "Oh, cool, that brand," and that's it. But there was a brand we chased last year. No, the year before. We chased in 26? We chased him in 24. We got introed through a friend of ours and in advertising, and we're introduced. And that was a name that like I could call my mom and she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, really?" And it was really cool. I was like, this is awesome. Like, I know who this brand is. And this brand, there's a product that's in my house. And it was really cool. And I will, we talked for a month or two, went back and forth. I got a bunch of access and gave them a bunch of reports and observations and yada, yada, yada. Then they kind of disappeared and then came back months and months later. And I'm like, I didn't feel great about it because it took so long. And if they're unwilling to kind of jump, then I felt uncomfortable. And I decided to take it after all. and it just did not work. It didn't work. And it was like, there was not a lot of trust on their end. It didn't work out well. And I'm not blind to the fact that like mistakes were made on both sides, but it got to the point where I was just like, you know what? If a sales cycle takes that long, and in our case, it's usually a month to 2 months. If it takes longer than that, this isn't it. This isn't it. It doesn't work. And that's okay. But I've used that as this probably doesn't work in the grand scheme. So yeah, automatic filter, I guess.
It's funny, you and I are very much alike. I used to have, well, I still have it, but it was called the no jerks policy. Problem was, jerk was too subjective, and people would say, but I'm not a jerk. And it's like, well.
Yeah.
And for the record, I judged the behavior, not the person. But I once had a business. We had a team of about 10 people, and I took it a step further. Once a year, every one of my staff could nominate a client for the purge. And we had it scheduled every year, and each of my employees got to pick the client they hated working with the most, and I would send them a letter saying, thank you for working with us. We think you'd be better served elsewhere. Here's 3 of our competitors we would strongly recommend you go talk to because of what we believe to be a fit. The fascinating thing was, we actually only ever, so the process was there. We did it every year. We only ever fired 1 client. And it was fascinating because it was unanimous. All 10 of my staff hated this 1 client.
Wow.
And just getting rid of that 1 person. And, it was inspiring and insightful for me, because the client treated me as the founder. We were peers. He treated me with respect. Turns out he hated women. He hated ethnic diversity. So he was a real jerk to the staff the minute my door was closed.
Yeah.
And I was like, why didn't you guys tell me this? And like, well, you seem to get along with him. And I'm like, no, that's not the important part. I can get along with anybody, for the 5 minutes I come in and say hi. It's you that's got to work with them day to day.
Yeah. I've had versions of that, of people, of clients treating people like that around, and as soon as I find out about it, it's not something I tolerate. I don't like it. But yeah, I'm with you. I like the purge. That's not a bad idea. That's good.
It's not. It became a fun thing, because every year we'd be like, oh, there's nobody to purge this year. Because the more we were aware of it, then what I realized in that experience, because I had learned the old way of, every client's a good client. I raised that particular guy's fees 30% every 3 months. And somebody had said, bill him till you like him. And after 2 years, I was like, he's not getting the hint.
Yeah. He just keeps shelling it out, which is the thing. Yeah. Somebody taught me that. It's like keep going.
The more he paid us, the more he felt entitled to abuse my staff.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? He's buying his own dickhead tendency, which is, I guess, in some degree, I would defend his position in being like, well, I can see logically how he was able to get there. I don't think it's right. It's not the way I would have done it. But if you go to a steakhouse and you pay $100 a plate, you're going to expect more from a waiter or waitress than you would at, Red Robin or Olive Garden or insert chain restaurant, right? Like, the apathy is a lot different there than it would be at like $100 plate steakhouse. So I do, in a very, rudimentary way, understand it.
Yeah.
Not the way I would operate, but it is what it is.
Well, and I think the lesson is, as a founder, we can decide, what we tolerate becomes our culture by default if we're not intentional.
Yeah. You got to be careful, and like the culture starts with you, and that's something that, I believe in the grind. We do unlimited vacation. We do a lot of those things that, like, I just believe in that, because I do believe it fosters creativity. When I need people to like get up early or be on a call or do something on the weekend, like it's not, there's nobody looks at me sideways. But I believe it's because we take care of people, and
Yep.
you know, I'm very clear in that, and I'm very intentional. Whereas if I'm a dickhead all the time to the people around me, and it's like they're going to be like, well, I don't want to do that, or they'll have an excuse that, you know, seems valid, that I could just be like, okay, well, I guess not, I guess I'll do that myself. You know, and I just never want to be that guy. I've worked for people like that, and it sucks.
Yeah. Well,
So it's not
I
cool.
can't make this stuff up, but one of my early jobs, the office manager had a mug that said, and he'd walk around drinking his coffee, carrying the mug, and it said, "The beatings will continue until morale improves." And I'm like, it's not funny, but man, is
Yeah.
it on the nose.
Yeah. I worked for Apple Retail in my early 20s, very big, like pre-iPhone, and I left, I think, around, I don't know, I have to look at math, but like iPhone 2 or 3, and they had the concept of fearless feedback. I highly doubt they coined it, but Apple was pretty good at like at the early days of retail. And the fearless feedback idea was, as long as you approach somebody respectfully, and you started the conversation with, can I give you some fearless feedback? It automatically opened a channel for you to give that person feedback. And I went from a seasonal phone employee to running stores. And I never felt as though people that were above me, that I couldn't tell them something or give them feedback. And I had it given to me multiple times over my career of, hey, can I give you some fearless feedback? And it would be a person that's making $12 an hour that works 10 hours a week. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And you just had this culture where you were okay with receiving it. One, because if you weren't okay, you got a call from like Cupertino that was like, here's your papers. You had to follow the rules. And I'm sure there was people at the top that didn't have to, right? But for the most part, it was a very easy channel to open as long as you did it respectfully. And I'm a firm believer in kind of that way. I doubt Apple's still that way. I hope they are, but I doubt it. So,
Well,
yeah.
Honestly, I feel like positive culture like that would be hard to kill. You'd have to do it intentionally. It wouldn't just die on its own, I don't think. But
Yeah.
I've learned, so I'm autistic, so I have what I call caustic level candid feedback, which is never, and by the way, it's never meant with malicious intent, but it's like, if you want to know that your baby's ugly, I'm the one to tell you. But I've learned, now I ask, do you want the full on candor, or just a little sugar pill with it before you get the full medicine?
Yeah. That's an interesting one. Because, I would hope people around you would be like, Jeff's not the guy. Like, let's not ask him about that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, let's ask him about like if the couch looks good there, or the furniture, whatever, something a little bit less memorable, I guess. But yeah, I'm with you. Like but again, like your feedback and your candor has a place in the world. It's just, context is important, but I love the fact that it's like, well, Jeff doesn't have a filter. And I love that. I love that.
Jeff makes an excellent business consultant. If you want to know where the cracks in the foundation are, you bring me in. If you want somebody to say everything's good, don't ask me.
Yeah. Not your guy. That's understandable. I love that. That's awesome. That's great.
And the worst part is, the world has rewarded me whenever I spot the crack that nobody else sees. People are like, oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you. And it's like, so I've just learned bedside manner. Do you want the terminal diagnosis, or do you want the good news first?
Yeah. And it's all in like how people react too, right? Like you can read the room on if somebody is gonna respond a certain way, and there's a way to deliver things to get the best out of people. And what was it, that Dale Carnegie book, right? Like How to Win Friends and Influence People, or whatever it's called. It's like, anytime you're going to ask somebody to do something hard, lead with a compliment. And it was like, it just works, because I think like psychologically we're all just wired that way. So, oh, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I'll totally take out the trash. You know, like it's as much as you try to be above it, it still works. Like it's not, you know, we're victims of it.
funny, but Dale Carnegie, that book is one of my filters, because if people don't like that book, it's like there's something off and I don't need to figure out what it is.
Yeah, I just know it's not for me.
Yeah. And funny thing, but having known Dr. Doug and working with him, I've actually built what I call a feedback meter. It's an AI model, and it helps me turn it down a notch or two. And so we have a 10-point scale now, from 0, which is make your soul scream for mercy, all the way up to sugar-coated beyond function. But yeah, I'm learning to be more human by using artificial intelligence.
I love that. I think when that stuff can help, it's an incredible thing. It's an incredible thing. And I have a million and one thoughts about that, but it's a different podcast altogether.
We'll have another episode. Now, I want to be mindful of your time, because I know you're in a national park and you got family to hang out with. Where can people go to connect with you, learn more about what it's like to work with you, or just to get to know what you do for them?
What we do. So we have 2 domains, apbd.com, a pretty big deal, apbd.com, or weareaprettybigdeal.com. Both go to the same spot, or Instagram, just We Are a Pretty Big Deal on Instagram. That's kind of where we share the day-to-day of like what we're doing as an agency. I read something the other day that was like, don't underestimate the silent agencies, like the little guys. And that hit me in like a really positive way, because at a lot of times we work on so much work that we just don't have time to talk about it. And that is us. Like I've started this thing a long time ago, and I'll land the plane quickly. Everywhere I ever worked where I was a leader in a leadership position in creative, every November, we would burn it down internally. I would just like burn it down. So everything that we've spent all year doing, let's talk about it, bring it to the table and go, what worked, what didn't, burn it all down, and let's rebuild. And from the ashes, come January, we'll be in a better spot, knowing what worked and didn't work last year. And that has been like instrumental in kind of the way we've been doing it. And this last time we did it, we discovered that there's like 120 projects that nobody knows about, from like Old Spice to like all of these huge brands that I'm like, man, this is really cool work. I totally forgot we did this 2 months ago. So the website is a work in progress as soon as we have time, which is never. It's really like when we create it. We'll have a bunch of work there. But yeah, you can contact us there. I would love to talk jive with anybody who wants to.
I love it. And one of the things that come to my mind is, the people who are actually doing the work and changing the world, they're too busy to tell everybody how busy they are.
Yeah.
And I got to share, because it resonated with me. Every November, I realized I'm very literal. It starts with the word no. So every November, I burn everything to the ground, and only the most worthy things get rebuilt in January. And it's been fascinating, because it gives me perspective going into the end of the year, and it gives me a clean slate for January.
100%. Yeah. And it's cathartic, right? Like you feel really good about doing it. And you, in some ways, like you spend Q3 looking forward to it, so that when Q4 starts, you're like, oh, it's coming up. It's coming up. And that's how I feel. And now it's like, it's harder, because like, it's like Super Bowl, it's Black Friday. So it's like, that's a hard thing to do. But for that, like 2 weeks after Black Friday, where I literally will pick up power tools in the month of December just to not work on web stuff, so that we feel somewhat satiated with like humanity. Where I'm not building a website or something. So
I love it. Well, Ryan, it has been a pleasure working with you.
Jeff, thank you.
And great to have you on the show today. Thank you for taking some family time to hang with me. I am deeply honored.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.